So here we are again, back on the big screen, right? Week one, class video 3. This is like the halfway mark of week one. There's so much information to get across, and again, that class video 2 was a little bit long. Hopefully, you found it useful. I'll try to make this one shorter, and I will likely have 2 more relatively quick videos, 4 and 5. And that'll finish up week one. Now I know, again, those seem like a lot, but if they're about a half an hour, remember we'd be in class twice a week for an hour and a half, so it really sort of equates to what we would do in the classroom. And what you'll find too is as we move along, as you get in the groove and we don't have to review some of the Blackboard stuff, we'll probably have 3-ish videos per week. And again, remember too that, with this B term idea, that we're taking a full class in half the time. So that's part of why it may seem a bit overwhelming, but it won't be bad. So let me not yap too much, get this started, and you can see I'm going to leave it in this mode. I'll minimize the side so it's not too distracting, but I'm going to jump in and out of the video a lot in this one to some online resources, and I'll show you how some of the links that I put into the slides would work for kind of additional information. And what I found out the first time I taught an online class is I directly plugged in the videos from a scene from, say, the Dead Poets Society, and what happened was I ran into copyright violations that I didn't even realize because I was such a newbie. So what I've done to preclude that is it's up to you to click the links that I generally show with a blue star on the slide, and then you can watch them. And they're short videos, but they have to do with what we're talking about. And you may have seen that in the last video. I don't remember if I covered it, so let me backtrack just a little bit here. Right, so next slide. This is drinking from the fire hose, and probably a lot of you, if not most of you, feel like that at this point. There's so much information coming at you. Orientation, helpful, certainly, but you've got to put that, what they told you, into practice, because a lot of it just goes over your head. So understand you will be drinking from the fire hose for a little bit, but you'll get used to it. And again, there's people out there, myself, we have a college navigator, she's called. There's people that are, their job in the college is to make sure folks overcome obstacles that are in their way. Right now, we're not going to do the work for you, but if you're having trouble with something, let somebody know, because if you don't, we don't know anything about it. So just understand, this will be the case for a little while, but it'll get better, right? I promise. From the last video, I didn't cover these, and I'm just going to cover them briefly because we could bog down on some of this, but wheelsisms. First, the thing wheels, I don't know if I explained it. That was my ridiculous call sign, right? Being a pilot, like Maverick, Goose, right? So I was wheels. That was my call sign. But these are isms. What are your priorities? When we do this exercise in class, most of the time what people will say is family, work, right? And now school. You've added that to your plate of things to do. But there's one that sometimes gets kind of forgotten about. We tend to minimize, and that's ourselves. That should also be a priority. If you work yourself into burnout, into distress, then all the rest will fall apart. So, and I ask too, okay, give me those priorities in order. And in generally the order is how I gave them: family, work, school, self. But sometimes those priorities will shift for a little bit. So those with spouses, those with kids, family generally, I would agree with that, comes out number one. But every once in a while, you may have to shift something ahead. Like, I've got a deadline at work. I've got to get this done. Can everybody just leave me alone for a little while? Same with school. So those that have spouses or significant others or kids, let them know that, I've embarked on this journey and school adds another priority to my plate. So once in a while, dad, mom, kids, you might have to leave me alone for a little bit so I can get my homework done. So let them know that up front. Let those in your family know that, hey, once in a while I might need some time to myself. And you can't really tell from this, but I've got a small office in my house that when I had to work on my dissertation, I would kind of lock myself away. That wasn't all the time, but once in a while those priorities will shift. And then I would argue they'll settle back to where they were before: family, work, school, self. But even that, self should sometimes rise to the fore. We seem to always put ourselves last, and sometimes that's not the right way to go. Now, you shouldn't be like it. All I care about is myself all the time either. There's a balance in there, and that's why the word priorities. Another one of mine is the discipline. Be part of the class. Start building a schedule. Look at the syllabus and see when things are due. And look, one of the things I found is I'm starting to do more and more of using this to plug in my to-dos. So I've got an app on my phone, and the more I use it, the more it becomes a habit. You'll hear that word again and again. It's embedded in my brain, and it keeps me up with what's going on. The other thing, I'll talk more about this in the time management section, is a whiteboard, a calendar down in my kitchen. So I have two places where I keep my info, and that whiteboard, I can just glance at it and see, holy moly, in 2 weeks, I mean, every day is full of stuff to do. So maybe I can get going on one of those a little bit early so I get it done on time. Because again, if you let everything slip to the last minute, you've got two options. You've got 6 assignments due in a week. And if you let them go all the way until the deadline, now all of a sudden, what am I going to do? Well, I do 6 of them very poorly, or I get 4 of them done and 2 don't. And neither of those are good options if I could have looked ahead. So on-time work, that's part of time management. And then fact versus fiction, fake news. You can see these are what I was mentioning, the blue star links, if you will. Right? So if you click on these, if you open the slides and click on these stars, it'll take you to some additional info. These first two have to do with the worst and best jobs in the future with the rise of technology. Okay, and this next one, this is simply a website that I use all the time. It's called factcheck.org, because I mentioned in the last video how we are surrounded with spin and fake news and BS. I look stuff up, and if you go to this, and I've got a couple links that actually take you to a couple pages later, you can look at, hey, that political speech was full of nonsense, or what President Biden just said about Afghanistan is mostly an exaggeration, if not completely false. So personally, I like to be informed. In this place, it's nonpartisan. That means it doesn't have a Republican or Democratic bias. And man, is that refreshing. So those are my wheels-isms that I didn't cover. There's one more, the week 2 assignments. So kind of getting through week 2, that's part of what this video is about. But just to throw them up here, making sure you have access to all the electronic stuff. And if you need a refresher, that video, the very first class video 1, was getting through the electronic piece, and I posted the link for it. And look, once you go to any of my class videos, you can subscribe. And again, I'm not trying to pitch this, you don't have to, but if you subscribe to my Wheels Web, my YouTube channel, when new stuff comes up, you just click on that and you can see what's out there, right? And see which videos are assigned to which week. And I try to really put that clearly in the title as to which week they go with, okay? Pardon my little dry. Setting up the computer for a folder for class material. I did that in class video 2, where you click on the desktop, name a folder, and start putting stuff in there. And we're going to do that one more time just as a full demo here. Okay. I put another link. It didn't go active, but I'll step through where that where's the textbook, right? One of the questions is, what is the textbook? Well, it's in Blackboard. I showed you those 6 steps to college success. But where is it? We'll do that today. We'll look at the college worksheet, and then I'll save the online or the discussion board for the next video. Kind of how that works, a little more detail. I gave you the overview how to get into it last time. Okay, and we finish up week 2 toward the end, getting toward the end of October with the last quiz, which is, again, it's online, it's in Blackboard, open book, 15 questions. The question comes up, people stress out over tests. The next class video, I believe I've got 7 or 8 slides about test taking skills that can help you out. But the quiz itself, how do they look? What do they consist of? I always get that question. Generally 13 true or false multiple choice, and then 2 what I would call short answer. They come across labeled as essays typically. They're not essays. It's not a 5-paragraph essay. It's not writing a book. It's a couple sentences to answer a question. And that test taking, we'll talk more about that to make sure you get all the pieces answered. Okay, so I skipped over that in the last video. That's what's due for week 2, and there's time to do it. So the to-do list, getting organized. Read the material first. So one of the first things at the beginning of each week, what I would do is go into Blackboard, call up the chapter, and read through it. And they're not super long, right? There's maybe 4 or 5 different pieces, but each one only takes, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. So we made it purposely, again, condensed. Here's what you need to know. And getting that organized and getting that habit pattern developed is one of the keys to college success and life success. Most of the most highly successful people in the world do 2 things. They work really hard, and they're superior at organization. That's part of what makes them successful. All right, so let's jump into this tech time and answer some of those questions that I sort of promised. Who's my advisor? How can I get a hold of them? Right, let's start with that one. So, to the GNTC homepage. One of the places you'll probably find yourself going a fair bit is here. So academics, and let's go down to programs of study. These are the degree programs, diplomas, certificates, full associate degrees. Everything GNTC teaches is listed here. So again, academics, programs of study, click. And what you'll see is a list of all of the classes. Now somewhere in your orientation you were assigned what do you want to go into, and even if you were I'm not sure what I want to do, they probably plugged you into some program. And so you can see the very first one's accounting, the diploma, right, which is shorter. Accounting full associate's degree, which is much longer, right, typically a 2-year program. And so everything here has a listing. So you find, based on the abbreviation, the name, and look how many there are. I mean, bloody hell. There's tons of them. So somewhere you're in here. So let's just pick one. Basic law enforcement. A certificate, so that's going to be super short. You click on that link, it takes you to the description and what's required as far as credit hours. Now, it's actually not super short, but you can see all the courses you're going to need to take, right? And it shows the advisor. Now, there's just one here, and he's on the Gordon campus, which is way down toward Rome. So let me go back. I'll pick another one that shows multiple campuses, just so you know that, and we'll actually look up the person's, who they are, where they are. Let's see. Something in healthcare. There we go. Notice this one has an advisor. Sometimes they're the same person, but an advisor for each campus. And notice at the bottom here in italics, this program available 100% online. For online advisement, contact any of the people. So what I would do if I lived in Rome, I would pick the Floyd County campus advisor. I'd try to pick, if I'm in Ringgold, I would pick the Catoosa advisor. Somebody that's the closest to you, just for the sake of maybe I need to go in and actually, go to the campus and talk to them. So let's say I'm in Rome and I want to talk to Gina Stevens. Notice these are links as well. When you put the cursor over things that are linked, it turns into a finger, and oftentimes links are bolded, blue, underlined. Somehow it shows there's more behind the scenes. So let's click on that. Right, and there you go. There's Gina Stevens' info, who she is, where she lives on the Floyd County campus, what room she's in, Building J, room 138, her phone number, and if you need to email her. So that's how. And I mentioned briefly in the last video about dropping classes, withdrawing. there may come a time where you're just failing math and it's time to pull the plug. Before you do that, you should talk to your counselor, your advisor, because they can look at maybe this is going to impact your financial aid. Okay? Maybe it won't. Now, I wouldn't make a habit of dropping classes, but once in a while having to drop a class, look, you're going to have to take it again. But dropping the class and trying again because you got behind, that's not the end of the world. Been there, done that, right? So that's the counselor. How do I find my advisor? Right. Where is the textbook? Okay. Again, here would be the entry portal. Once you've signed in to Blackboard, then you click on our class, takes you to the home page. You know you're in the right place. You see this picture. And what I would, on this left-hand side are all the different pieces of our class. So where is the textbook? Almost everything is under lessons. This may ring a bell. We looked at, this isn't the actual link, it's just the picture of the cover. But let's go to week 2 and you can see how full week 2 is getting with slides and videos, which is what I'm doing now, and then your worksheet, the discussion board, and the quiz that ends each week basically. So just click on that folder. Again, you can see it's a link because it shows the finger. Not the finger, this finger. Okay, so slides associated with videos. And again, I try to keep these matched up, the slides and videos, so you can look at them. That's where, if you were interested in watching or connecting to some of the links, you pull up the slides I have, you click on the blue star, and it takes you to those links for a little additional information, videos. Some are just for fun, quite honestly. But the textbook is the very first thing in each week. So just click on it. And this is what it'll look like. And that was, you can't see it, but that's that soft chalk cloud com. That was the link I put in the slide. So there it is, 6 steps to student success. Step 1, you can call it chapter 1, getting off to a good start. Start the lesson. And what you're going to see is a couple things. There's some active pieces here that's going to step you through kind of what I talked about, the My GNTC Blackboard and all. You can actually click on this and listen to the chapter. And some information about the school. Here are some of those links at that home page. Some of them, one I just covered, right? The different programs of instruction. And then the pieces of the chapter are listed here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? But each of those is really short. So now I'm on the first page. Go through and you do the exercise. Where do you see your transcripts? It explains the home page, right? And you can get the app if you want it for your phone. I have not used the app. I have it installed, but I don't really use it. And so once you go through all that, then it's going to take you to the next piece of the chapter. That's step 1. A little bit about GNTC. Yeah, great. I wouldn't spend an inordinate amount of time on this one, but it's nice to know where the school started. So that's it. Know your program. We just did that, right? Know your advisor. This is your education, so own it. Okay? And each of these, look, sometimes you have to scroll down. You're like, okay, is that it? Well, no, there's more to it. Down at the bottom, hit next. Okay? And now it takes you to the next piece. So you can see it looks like a lot, but it's really not. Stumbling blocks, things that are going to get in your way. Procrastination, that's a big topic. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. Right? These exercises, look, if it's in the textbook, unless I specifically say so, I don't need you to submit these. Do them for your own benefit, but they're not a requirement. There's very few that I actually use out of the textbook because I have my own kind of worksheets, but do them for your own benefit. They're short and sweet. Thoughts, beliefs, worldview. Every one of us has a different worldview because we have different thoughts and beliefs. We all come from a different place. And that's part of what makes the world great, is not everybody's the same, thank goodness. Okay? And it'll explain a little bit more about each of those. So this is more typical of what you'll see in the textbook than just kind of the history piece. Some reading. You might want to take a few notes here as to where these things reside Because remember, the quizzes and tests are open book. This idea of time management, we'll talk a lot more about that later in the class. This is kind of an introduction. I personally, my style, I don't go minute by minute. I look at the big ticket things I have to do. I prioritize each day as what needs to be done. I work on the most important ones first, and I may not get to the last, item 5, item 6, but they weren't super important, and I may move them off to the next day or the next week, depending on when and what they are. If this works for you, fine, but I tend to not break my day down minute by minute, right? And here's another thing, okay, here goes, tangent number 1. What you're going to find is both for studying, test taking, time management, whatever it is, you may have a system that works for you now. Keep doing that. You may have to develop a better one because this college is way different than high school, right? You're not going to get drugged through to graduation because the school needs your money. They already got your money. It's up to you to get through the school. That's one of the big differences, high school to college. So if your studying skills, your test taking skills, note taking, if those aren't up to snuff, figure out a new way of doing it and try one and give it a little bit of time. Is this working? Yes, no, partially, and adjust and find your happy place where you find a system that works for you. And I'll throw some ideas out there when we get to those time management, focus, motivation pieces, but that's on you too. Difference from college. Okay. So that's where the textbook is. You get to the bottom, you hit next, and it goes to that next step. And if you look over here on the right-hand side, see, we've already gone through, and again, it was a little bit cursory, yes, but the take responsibility wasn't a huge block. We're already down to the last couple at this point. Playing on Blackboard, I just recommend plinking around on Blackboard to get used to where things are. And the more you do that, the better you'll get. And if you can't find something, either do the search or ask me, hey, where is this? But give it a shot. And most things, again, are under lessons. Okay? So each week is going to have a link to the chapter of the textbook. Okay? Step 2. Week 3, step 2. That's the textbook right there. That's what it looks like. Right. What else? Worksheets. When to do them, how to do them. Let's go back. Oof, a lot of tech time, but I think it'll be worth it. Get rid of the textbook. We'll go back to lessons. We'll go to week 2 because that's the first worksheet. So you'll see, you go down toward the bottom, why college worksheet. And you know what? I want to put the due date on that page as well. It's in the syllabus on the last page, and it's somewhere else I added, which I talked about last class. But I'm going to put it underneath here so you guys will see that the due date will be under here as well. There's no reason not to. But let's step through this because it has another piece of tech time that I want to cover. Why college worksheet? Okay, and you'll see this pop up. And you can use, I think it's Pages, with if you have an Apple product, it'll still work. So you can open it. And if you have, and oh, by the way, the school has free download of Microsoft Office. And I need to show you where that is. That you can download, I think, 5 different copies to tablets, desktops at home, things like that. Right. Here's the worksheet. Notice one thing, when you pull it up for whatever reason, because it's coming from a source, maybe there's a suspicion of, I don't know. But see this little yellow banner at the top? What I want you to do for these worksheets is type in your name and date. Hey! The reason it won't do anything is because you haven't clicked the Enable Editing function. So click that. That yellow banner will go away, and now here's my worksheet. Type your name on it. What's the date? And then answer the questions. Finish this thought. The reason I'm attending college is. So a good robust answer. The reason I'm attending college is, and spell it out. And it should be a couple, 3 sentences. Okay, not a 2-word answer. And you do that for all of these. And I'm a terrible typer, so it's going to be in gibberese. See that red line of death, words going, those aren't words, you're an idiot. Now that I've filled all of these out and I'm done with the worksheet, let's go to the desktop. See if I can do that. Oops, I hit the calendar. Let's do it this way. Okay, remember this? Remember last time I made a College 1500 folder. So again, anywhere, just not on something that's active, anywhere on the desktop, right click, new folder, and that'll spit out a folder that you can label. We've already got this one from the last video. So now what I do is I go back to my worksheet that I've finished, and I do this. And I wish I could blow up this top banner. I can't. File, wrong side, File, Save As. If you just hit save, it's going to save it in my documents, and that's going to get full really fast. So Save As, that allows you to name it and place it. So look, some things come up as like you were just in this folder, maybe you want to save it there. What I do is just hit Browse. Okay, and now remember on the desktop, I built a folder called College 1500. So you can see I got a lot of stuff on my desktop. There it is, College 1500. Just double click on it. There's nothing in there because we haven't saved anything yet. But look, in the file name, it's Y College Worksheet. Just hit save. All right, and now I'm going to close this. And I go back. Notice there's something now showing up in that folder. I should take this off my poor son's backside. And if I'm like, oh man, where did I put that? I got to turn in that worksheet. Well, if I keep organized, open the folder, double click, guess what's in there? The Y College worksheet. And so I would do that with every single worksheet that I do. That way I know exactly where they are. I don't have to hunt around for them. So that's the Save As, and it's super useful. All right, I think that covers most of tech time. Let's see. Blackboard calendar. This will be quick. And we did the Save As. Back to Blackboard. I mentioned in the last video, and I had a change of heart, I decided to go ahead and activate the calendar. And so let's go to November. Notice the purple is my history class, but the green is us. And it shows what's due on what day. And remember, due date is the deadline, but if you do it a day or two early, great, no problem. So now this is there. The syllabus tells you when it's due on that last page. And again, I'll put on the bottom of like the worksheet and the quiz folders the due date as well. So honestly, there's no excuse for not knowing when stuff's due. If you're getting surprised by things, your time management is not up to speed. Let me show you one more, and I'm going to save one for the next video just for sake of time. You can actually email through Blackboard. And it's not that complicated, but it takes a few steps. And look, tech time tends to put people to sleep. So let me just show you one more and we'll move on. My grades. If you want to see, hey, how am I doing in this class? You click on My Grades, and if you notice now, every event that's graded is now listed. And they'll plug up to the individual. If it's a quiz, it'll go into the quiz average, and there's an overall grade at the very top. And that'll tell you how you're doing in the class, with all the pieces kind of merged together with the equations I put in the background that you don't care about, but it's a running total. So at the end, when the last assignment is turned in, your overall grade will be the grade you get in the class. So you can check on your grade. Because look, if I was a student, I'd want to know how I was doing, not every minute, but I'd want to have that. And it bugged me when I had professors that wouldn't put things in for weeks on end and then dump it all in there. Look, if I'm struggling, I want to know that sooner than later, and then maybe talk to the instructor about what can I do about it. Okay? And then the last piece of tech time, I'm not going to go back to the slides. I mentioned Wikipedia last time, and I wanted to touch on that just once more. If you Google almost anything, and I just picked again this Battle of Hastings, a very historic battle, you put that in. Notice I don't use Google, I use DuckDuckGo because it doesn't track what you do. But anyhow, the first thing that comes up is still Wikipedia, and almost always is. So let's just quickly go to the Wikipedia page. One is, it's a pretty robust article with a whole lot of these little numbers that are references. So people's disdain for Wikipedia, I think, is overblown. Now again, yes, I know you can get in there and manipulate it, but if I go in there and say Mike Breakey was the King of England at the Battle of Hastings, it's not going to take long before somebody goes, nope, and deletes that. So I think that's a little bit overblown, but I wouldn't use it as an academic source or reference. But let's go to the very bottom. Look, it's a pretty substantial article. See all these references? Maybe some of those could be useful if you were doing an article on the Battle of Hastings, because these take you to more what's called primary sources, original documents, things like that. So I think Wikipedia can be useful, right? And there's your citations, where the information was taken from. It's a pretty robust article, right? I think Wikipedia gets an overly bad name unfairly. That's my opinion. Don't go to your other teachers and say, hey, Breaky said we could use Wikipedia. No, that's not what I said. All right. I think that covers tech time, right? Mercifully. Yikes. Took forever. So let's jump into the actual class slides, and this won't take too long. We're at the 30-minute mark, so I need to get going. That's weird. Alexa just started talking. Man, that freaks me out. I'm not so sure I like that thing. Let's see. Okay, here we are. And now I think I can go to slideshow mode. You remember, perhaps, there's a certain structure. This one's more typical of a classroom. So I usually start off when we're in class with a quote or two or three, and then words of the day that are key concepts. So, note takers, if I was going to write down some notes to help me speed through the questions in an open book test, I would write down what's called words of the day. These quotes, you don't have to, they're just FYI. But I like them because they give focus to what we're talking about. College success, 80% of success is showing up. Maybe more than that. There's people, I've asked this when we're in the classroom the first day, how many of you were not frightened, but had some fear or hesitancy about coming to class? And most people put their hand up because it's an unknown. So just show up. Show up physically, show up mentally, and that's part of the battle that you overcome that some people never do. They'll sign up for class and never show up. And I like this from Edison, right? The so-called inventor of the light bulb. Yes, he was an inventor. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up, because we know what's going to happen if we give up. Nothing. We're not going to get to that goal we've set. So just try one more time, and guess what? Thomas Edison made over 3,000 attempts at making a filament, right, the part that gives off light in his light bulb, before he found something that would work. Everything else would just burn out almost instantly. So he just kept trying. It's my class, so I can do this, right? I find a lot of people think asking for help, raising your hand, getting on the chat, it makes me look dumb or it's weakness. No. I mean, it's hard to do that. It's hard to say, hey, I don't get it in front of a group of people. So I think it's a sign of strength. So keep that in mind. You don't know something? Ask. All right, so here's the words of the day, and these are critical, and they'll inform the rest of the slides, which will take another like 10, 12 minutes or so. The idea of being reactive. We all do this. We react to something. The best example I can think of is you're driving down the road, the car in front of you, you see the brake lights come on. You don't even think about it. You automatically put your foot on the brake pedal. If you see the car slam on the brakes, the car noses over and smoke starts pouring out of the tires, you're like, oh man, and you honk on the brakes. We react to an external stimulus, and we all do this. But the reason I use that is the better option, when possible, is to do this. It's the opposite of reactive. So if we're reacting to something, something happened, I got to react to it. If I'm proactive, I'm thinking ahead, right? So I see that last week of November is just jam-packed with stuff to turn in. I know that already, and now I start working on it sooner. I space out my time. I manage my time better. I anticipate what's going on. I have a plan B. If this doesn't work, what can I do? Is there some other way around this problem? So we want to be, as much as possible, proactive. It gives us more control over our lives. And we'll get more into that down the road, shortly down the road, right? So as much as we can. Yes, there's things that happen, right? My kid calls back when they were in high school. Hey, Dad, can you bring my homework? I forgot it. It's like, Nope. I mean, he ran out the door with 2 seconds to spare to make it to school on time. Like, no, man, I'm not helping you get out of a jam. Tell the teacher you forgot it. You probably get a late fee, and give it to her. Come home after school, get it, and take it back to school while she's still there. Right? Have a plan B. Other people tend to make us reactive sometimes. Kids are the worst, right? As far as ruining our plan. All right, two more words that are not necessarily opposite, but have very strong different meanings. And one of the things I want you to start working on in this class and in general is being objective. Okay? Some people say objective, that's my goal. That's one definition of objective, absolutely. But the one I want to use is this. Objective, using all the information, factual information I have to make the best possible decision. Uninfluenced by emotion or personal prejudice, uninfluenced by spin and BS on Facebook or Fox or CNN. Um, they're purveyors of entertainment. You want facts? Look at Fact Check. Look at a more reliable source of information, and we'll get much deeper into that later in the class. But being objective as opposed to, and there's nothing wrong with, subjective. It's subject to you. And I just showed you that little pyramid quickly. All of us come from a different place. We all have, the word is bias. We all have a bias. We all see the world through a different pair of glasses based on our experiences. There's nothing wrong with this. Just know that most people are subjective. So let's come up with a synonym that can help us keep this straight, because this can get confusing. Objective, facts. Subjective, opinions. And there's nothing wrong with those, right? Newspapers are full of opinion articles, and I like some of them. I don't like some of them, but that's okay. It's the guy or gal's opinion, right? So that's subjective, and we see the world differently. But if we're trying to make a best informed, big ticket decision in our lives, I think we want to pull in all the facts that are available and be objective about that. Okay? Spend a lot of time on that, but you're going to see objective and proactive throughout this course. And the last one, syllabus, I said this before. We make these crazy names in academia. A syllabus is a fancy name for a guide. So each class will have a syllabus. It's a guide to that class with the instructor info, late policy, here's what we're doing each day or each week. Right? It just guides you through. And each class has their own, because we're all different, thank goodness. There's some great teachers, there's some horrible ones. So this becomes a little bit, online impossible to do. But I ask folks, what do you expect from college? What are the differences from high school? Think about that for a little bit. What are the differences, especially those that have just finished high school? High schools are fine, but they seem like they're so enamored with standardized testing that we miss some of the life skill pieces that we used to learn in high school. And that idea of, because of economics, schools get more money when they graduate more students, which makes them tend to push people out the door that maybe they aren't completely ready. And that doesn't do anybody any favors, right? So give a thought to that. So that's one of the biggest ones. The responsibility of getting things done is on you. I'm not going to chase you around. I'm not going to send you 100 email reminders. Hey, so-and-so, where's the worksheet? You don't do it, you didn't do it. It's not my diploma, it's yours. And again, not being an ogre, but that's the way it works. Between technique and procedure, techniques are things you develop that work for you. A procedure is you must do it this way. To get into GNTC, you had to fill out some entry paperwork, right? The administration or the admittance paperwork. Right? But a lot of things that you do are technique. So trial and error. If something's not working, why isn't it working? Change it, fix it, make it better. The fear of the unknown, I mentioned that before. There is a significant, I don't know what college is going to be like. Just keep going. 80% of success is showing up. Of course you don't know, but don't let that stress you out. That's part of why this class exists, is to eliminate a lot of those unknowns. And guess what one of the biggest self-defeating habits is? And it was in that chapter 1 that we looked at just briefly. I should play the Jeopardy music right now. Do, 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 do. It's called procrastination. It means putting things off. And again, now I have 6 things due today because I didn't get ahead of the curve, and I can either do them really crappy or I can turn in 3 and the other 3 just don't get done or get late fees associated with them. So procrastination is very self-defeating, and we we all do it. Trust me, I do too. Okay. Other survival skills, virtual attendance, being engaged. I've mentioned that before. Your attitude towards school. This is stupid. If you come in with a chip on your shoulder, or I hate math and I'm terrible at it, you're probably not going to do as well as if you go, you know what, I hate math, but I got to get this to get my diploma, so I'm going to give it my best shot. That makes a huge difference in how you do in the class. Right? And choices. Is it really a reason? I didn't turn it in because of plug-in excuse number 7, or was it a reason? My car blew up, my spleen fell out. I mean, there are some reasons. Most of the time what people put up are excuses. Yeah, I put it off until the day it was due, and then my car blew up. Okay, that's not a reason, it's an excuse. I've said enough about the syllabus, man. Read it, love it. It's big. Right, so here's a list. I'm not going to go through each one in detail, but you can see top of the list, man. Procrastination, not planning ahead, not having a plan B. And here's just a few others to keep in mind. Use your advisor. Keep asking until they say leave me alone or you get the answer. And you can always start with me, and if I don't know or I know there's a better person out there, I'll get you in that direction, right? Don't ignore problems. You're struggling with math. Well, I'll get it. Maybe not. If things aren't working right, know it, do something about it. Don't ignore it. Bad news does not improve with age. Address it sooner. Let me save this for another discussion when we go through a little more detail of the academic programs. Prerequisites. Basically, it means something I got to take before I can take another class. So if you got to take remedial math, you got to get that done before you can take college algebra. Right, so there's a sequence. Not all classes like this one doesn't have a sequence per se. This one's tough. If you're undecided, don't panic. There's a lot of people not sure where their vector in life is. Look at, what do I like to do maybe would help. But if you're undecided right now, that's okay. By second semester, you should be developing a vector because there's certain basic classes everybody has to take. But at some point, you want to start moving into those classes that affect your major, the thing you want to do. Right? So it's there. Don't freak out if you're not sure yet. And sometimes talk to people or job shadow. This one is tough. It depends on how much free time you have, if you're taking actual classroom or virtual or both. But you'll get a better feel for, man, I just took too many classes and it kicked my butt. Or I didn't take enough. I had some free time that maybe I could have taken one more class and moved quicker toward graduation. So first semester is a good time to get a feel for that. So use it as such. If I'm just maxed out, take one less class in the spring. Okay? And you can register. Look, tangent, making the video longer. When we get to the returning student registration piece, you can register for 3, 4, 5 classes, and then you get to that early January, school's about to start, and you go, you know what? Something's changed. My shift's changed. I got more responsibility at work. I need to drop a class. You can do it, and you can do it at my GNTC in a split second, right? So to me, if I was going to err, I'd err to what I think my maximum is, and as I approach the semester, make sure that's still reasonable. If it seems like too much now, then drop one class. And again, you'll know that better after taking a semester. And don't be afraid to drop. That's why I showed you where to find your advisor, but talk to them first. First, what I would do is talk to the instructor. And I'm just not getting it in this class, but I'm only, a couple weeks in. If I'm struggling, what I would do, Mike's opinion, is I would stick with that class, learn as much as I can up until the point that it came to that data drop, that last data drop with a W, then drop it if I'm failing it. But I've tried to maximize what I've learned and then take it again that next semester so some of it's still fresh. And so you may find you don't fall behind as quickly, and that helps you get through that class. And I'm thinking myself, math would be it. Okay? Shouldn't be your first option, but it is an option. Now just don't do it every time. Eventually the school's going to say, nope, we're not sending any more money your way because you're wasting it. Okay, these, I didn't make them blue stars, but you can see that because there's a blue line and it's kind of bolded, notice there's some links. So these would be additionals if you want to. This first one's about a Kenyan marathon runner in the Olympics years ago. It's a great story. And then these two are from a movie called Dead Poet Society, and it talks about who is responsible for making your life extraordinary, as he calls it. Right? That it's only. And then the second one, what will your verse be? And it comes from a Walt Whitman poem. The powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. The powerful play is life. And people would argue, well, if I'm just a bum and I don't do anything, I don't contribute a verse. I think you do. It's just a terrible verse. So what will your verse be? They're short, 2-3 minutes. I think you'll enjoy them. You ever had somebody tell you this? You can't do that. You're too fill in the blank. I think everybody has. But here's the next question. Who decides how that affects you? That's you. I ignore people like that. I try to surround myself with folks that are positive. Not that they won't criticize something that I do. Friends can do that. But not ones that are negative, that are trying to see me fail. And guess what? You've got people around you that want to see you succeed in college. But I bet if you think about it, there's probably a couple people, maybe not friends, but in your circle of relationships, want to see you fail. Because they don't want to see you elevate yourself out of the norm and, ooh, look at her now, big brain college student. Yeah, well, you did that for a reason. You decided to go to school for a reason. So you decide how this affects you. Easier said than done, certainly. Okay, I think this is the last slide. Question to think about. Does technology make our lives, make us more or less proactive, thinking ahead? Personally, I think it does both, and it's up to us. You'll hear this again and again. To me, it's not the machine, it's the user of the machine and what you use it for. So I think technology can do both. It's dependent on you to make it help you, not harm you, not, distract you. Think about some traits successful students might have beyond time management, focus, motivation. There's a lot of them out there. And here's the last one. And you know what? Just for time-wise, I'm going to slide this into the next video as well. It's called the spider chart. And it's really an outlining tool for writing papers. But I think it's very useful for trying to skim through a chapter of material in 15-20 minutes and get the idea out of it. What do I look for? Okay, I'll save that for the next one. So I will see you next class. Again, goofball thing. I don't know if anybody who knows Chris Farley. Unfortunately, he was a comedian who died of a drug overdose. But that little girl looks just like Chris Farley. So reincarnation, welcome back. All right, see you next class.